We're excited to bring you this week's episode of The Changeover. Stick around for...
YouTube, from a business standpoint, is trying to own like the TV audience. And so they kind of treat channels like individual shows. They need a consistent talent, someone that the audience comes back to. They need a consistent format. If you were watching a TV show and episodes 1 through 8 had very different formats and storylines, you probably wouldn't keep watching. And so you have to organize it in a way that is for the audience and for the viewer. You don't need the charismatic, loud host to be successful on these platforms. Like, you just want someone who's educational and has lived experience and can share stories and can share mental models and can share results. I think a way to like ease into it a lot of times is into an interview format. People tend to feel more comfortable in like a panel format or a fireside chat format at events because it's unscripted and they don't have to prepare as much. A lot of these local businesses publish product information to their YouTube channels, and they do a breakdown of the mower, right? And they're like, is it easy to push? How wide is it? And the LLMs are grabbing all that information from the transcripts, and it started to actually serve me recommended videos. And it actually helped me as a buyer make that decision. And we're starting to see that more in B2B because people are going to start to ask questions. Who are the best? What's the pricing? What are the features? What do I get? What are the case studies?
Welcome back. I'm Jo Phillip, and this is part 2 of my conversation with Kyle Denhoff, Senior Director of Marketing at HubSpot. If you haven't heard part 1 yet, you're going to want to go back and listen. In part 1, we made the case for why YouTube deserves a focal spot in your B2B marketing strategy and why AI has made that more urgent. Today, we get into the how: channel structure, optimization, repurposing, finding your on-camera talent, and using AI to make it all a little less painful. So Kyle, let's pick up where we left off.
Let's do it.
Let's start with structure, because this is where I see a gap at lots and lots of businesses, right? So many B2B YouTube channels, they look like someone's hard drive or junk drawer, I could even say, right? Like a little bit of everything's in there. Yep. It may or may not be organized. It certainly isn't very searchable. It's not navigable. You manage multiple channels, so I assume you understand this challenge well. So what does a well-built B2B channel look like?
Good question. Yeah, HubSpot, I think at this point we have 13 or so.
Yeah.
So quite a few. So we have a few learnings. YouTube, from a business standpoint, is trying to own like the TV audience. And so they kind of treat channels like individual shows. And what I mean by that is like they need a consistent talent, someone that the audience comes back to. They need a consistent format. If you were watching a TV show and episodes 1 through 8 had very different formats and storylines, you probably wouldn't keep watching. And so you have to organize it in a way that is for the audience and for the viewer. And so we're spending a ton of time on, okay, what are our ownable formats for this channel? What's the frequency in which we release them? How is it organized for our returning viewers when they come back? We are doing active programming. It is not a channel just for hosting videos.
You're building a destination, a place they're going to want to keep coming back to that's familiar and comfortable for them. And
the returning visitor is a signal for the algorithm that this is a good channel. This is what people are looking for.
Okay, how about playlists, setting things up? And what do you do if you do have folks who maybe you've got lots of people with access to upload? How do you put rules in place there?
Remove their access. That's probably what I would do. We have one person who manages the uploads for all the channels. There are people who have management access, but there's one person who is responsible for the packaging and uploading because it's critical to the success of the channel. So to your question around playlists, I think playlists are used in a couple different ways. If you're making serial-based content or seasonal content, like you're organizing a playlist like, hey, here's season 2 and here are the 8 episodes you should watch in sequence to get all the information you need. That's one way to use it. The other is to almost think of like your old content cluster model where you're organizing by themes or topics, which is helpful for the algorithms and for the viewers in regards to, hey, these 10 videos, 20 videos, etc., all are around a single topic. So you have to figure out okay, what's my content strategy? What are the different clusters? And then can I organize my videos in a way to tell the algorithm, here's the topic I want to be known for, and here are the videos that are helpful on that topic, but also tells the audience, if you're interested in getting more of this, we're going to organize it in a playlist format so you can watch them back to back.
You mentioned, right, 13 channels. It's a lot of channels. Would you say that the smartest way to get started for somebody new to this would be one?
One. Yes. Oh my goodness. We've been building, well, like I recognize HubSpot has, we are very lucky and fortunate. We have some resources. We're a big company now. We've been doing YouTube for over 5 years. So I think we've done a lot of testing and a lot of failing over the last 5 years. And hopefully, we'll be able to provide some insights as to what will work now. I think we are at a point in time where B2B is noticing that YouTube needs to be part of the mix. And so at this point, you're going to want to invest in YouTube if your buyers are spending time there.
We do pretty significant audience research for many of our clients. And when we're looking at, the affinities between their audiences and the various places where people are finding information, rare is the report that doesn't have YouTube very, very close to the top. There may be some audiences that maybe skew a little bit lower than the average user. But I would argue in many cases, even there, it's about the right content for those audiences, right? If you're meeting a need, chances are they will find you.
I think that's right. When you're doing the audience research, you're looking at media consumption habits, and then you're looking at like search behavior on certain platforms. And at the end of the day, most of the audiences that we're trying to reach, YouTube is showing up in the top 3 or 4 channels in which they use during the week.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about YouTube Studio. There are a lot of drawers to rummage in there. Yeah. And
I get lost in there.
Well, you can. You could spend a lot of time and a lot of effort adding all the things to everything that you upload. What are the absolute must-haves, right, for optimizing for that video?
Yeah, good question. Because I think it depends who you're talking to and how you like structure your YouTube program. At a high level, from a performance standpoint, all of our channels have like 2 goals, a reach goal and a demand goal. The reach goal is how many views is my channel generating every month, and just are we generating more brand impressions for the business? The demand goal is for us content leads, and are we converting people who view videos into conversions on HubSpot.com? I would say that's just like the team goal, and that's the goal that we're reporting up to leadership. But then there's all these signals that influence those goals, right? And I think that's where people who are investing in YouTube have to spend a lot more time understanding is what are the metrics that the algorithm favors that essentially boosts your content to new viewers. That's really what we're talking about. And so YouTube values people who generate videos that keep people's attention. And so you want to look at your click-through rate on your thumbnails. Are people seeing the video in their homepage or in their feed, clicking it because they recognize you or they like the thumbnail? Now they've landed on the video. And in the video, we look at average view duration. We want to make sure that people are sticking around. If you're uploading a video and your average view duration, and say it's a 10-minute video and your average view duration is under 30 seconds, the video is going to never generate traction on the platform because YouTube is seeing that people aren't sticking around.
Right.
So that's a signal to the algorithm, hey, this isn't that valuable to the people who are searching for it. So we look at the thumbnail click-through rate. We look at the average view duration. The other thing that we look at a lot is the engagement on the video. So we're looking at the thumbs up, the comments. Those engagements are also signals to YouTube that my viewers like this content. And so those tend to be the 3 signals. I mean, we're looking at a ton of the data points, but if you're trying to figure out, is this content resonating with my audience? I would look at those 3, and then those 3 lead to other outcomes.
And so disabling comments might not be the best option.
No, yeah. I know that's more like a brand protection play. And we've done it, like we've done it on certain videos. I think that's a judgment call. But if you're creating a piece of content that's for your community, that's educational, that's positive, you want the comments because the comments show engagement, which signals to the algorithm, this is a video other people should watch. And so I would have comments on, and I would also have a plan in place to engage with your viewers. YouTube channels are very much a community. What
other kinds of optimization aspects are really important? You mentioned the thumbnail, right? So you can design your thumbnail to garner more attention rather than just rely on the auto-generated one, right? But what about thinking about titles, thinking about the descriptions? How important is a transcript? What's most important there in terms of getting the most value out of that asset that you're putting on YouTube?
All those things are incredibly important for the viewer, and then they're also incredibly important for the algorithm. So just to break it down, when we do a video brief, we actually do the title and thumbnail first because they're actually going to dictate if this video is a success, because that's the discovery mechanism that people see the title and the thumbnail immediately. So our production teams actually spend a lot of time on the thumbnail. We may do 5 to 6 to 7 different variations trying to figure out the right combination of an individual's face, a headline, the words we use, the colors we use. Funny enough, we use a lot of yellow in our thumbnails because they tend to have higher click-through rates, but little things like that where we are spending time optimizing the thumbnail itself. And that's specifically to try and drive the click-through. If you're running a search-based strategy, you're going to want to use keywords in your titles, in your descriptions. And you mentioned the transcript. YouTube's auto-generating the transcript once you upload the MP4. So mentioning the keyword in the video is important because it'll end up in the transcript. I think for most businesses, you're going to write the brief and you're going to say, here's the term that we're targeting. Here are the beats we need to hit in this video, similar to an old blog outline. And then you'll start with your title, your thumbnail, your description, because that's the packaging for the video itself. And then from there, either write the script or get ready for your conversation that's going to touch on those topics.
Fantastic. Super helpful. So YouTube optimization's always mattered for search. This we know, right? But now it matters for AI search, right? Because like we were talking about, we know that all that stuff is getting scraped and then synthesized into what LLMs are delivering to the users there. So if you are trying to write both for YouTube's algorithm and thinking about your audience there, and for those AI systems that are coming in, does that change what optimization looks like in your experience?
I would say we're all trying to figure it out. I'll say that. We know that YouTube is being cited frequently. And at the end of the day, we always go back to the customer. And Google's customer is the searcher and ChatGPT's customer is the user. And they're trying to provide the best experience. So they're trying to provide them the answer to the question that they have. And so when we create a piece of content, we're optimizing for more the traditional SEO tactics where we're like, here's the keyword we're targeting, here's the intent. We're going to include the keyword in the title, the description as a part of our video. But then there's this human element of it, right? Which is like the person actually watching the video. You'll see if anyone goes and checks out HubSpot's videos, we have like a title and description framework where we're actually trying to write more of an editorial hook that includes the keyword. So we're not going straight to the query like we used to around like how to top 10 LinkedIn advertising strategies, but we are mentioning a free guide, or we are mentioning the business that did this specific playbook and the outcome that they had. So you're kind of layering on the editorial hook. So for us, we have this slide that says where we eat, EEAT, but essentially it's where's the keyword, where's the end user, and then can we find a middle ground where we're creating something of value to them, regardless of if the keyword is included in there or not. The keyword is there specifically for the algorithms, but we need the thumbnail and the title to be there for our users.
Right, because algorithm or not, if people don't see that value in exactly the words that they see, they're not going to click.
Exactly. An example I give sometimes is, so you may create a piece of content. You may have a keyword like LinkedIn content strategy. The old way of doing it is very SEO focused of like, top 10 LinkedIn content strategies from these brands. The new way of doing it, which is the editorial angle, would be like, oh, well, who's the best brand in our category that's doing LinkedIn? And why do we think they're doing it the best? And Hockey Stack is the software company. Their CEO publishes quite a lot on LinkedIn. And so the editorial hook may be the LinkedIn content strategy that drove $10 million in revenue. And you're leading with more of a story hook. Mm-hmm. And so you're still answering the intent. You're still including the keyword. You're just presenting the information in a unique and interesting way.
And you're promising proof, right, in that title, right?
Yeah. So that's where I think we try to get to, is taking more time in pre-production to say, like, what's the best way to present this information?
Makes sense to me. So let's talk a little bit more now about AEO, right? I would like to hear from you if you have a concrete example of how a well-optimized YouTube video can improve your brand's chances of being cited or recommended. So an example, if you have one, of somebody seeing that lift from a video, of actually, showing up more in an answer, or showing up maybe at all, right, in AI answers.
For HubSpot, we're showing up for very niche queries in our software categories. The best example I can probably give for someone who isn't in B2B tech would be consumer. I had to purchase a mower I think it was late last summer. And I wanted to do research on what type of mower should I get? Should it be a tractor, a zero turn, a push mower? What are the best mowers out there? Is it Toro? Is it John Deere? Right? You have like all these queries that you have. And when I was doing my research, the great thing about an LLM like ChatGPT is, instead of me having to click and go out to 20 different websites, it's going out, it's understanding perspective from those websites, and then it's coming back with a summary answer. And within the summary answer, the LLMs will actually do a lot of structured formats. So they may do tables that show you pricing information. They may do tables that show you feature information. They may pull quotes from YouTube videos or articles. So like individual assets. When I was doing that, a lot of videos started to show up, because a lot of these local businesses, especially I'm in upstate New York, and a lot of the local businesses publish product information to their YouTube channels. And they do a breakdown of the mower, right? And they're like, is it easy to push? How wide is it? And the LLMs are grabbing all that information from the transcripts, and it started to actually serve me recommended videos. And it actually helped me as a buyer make that decision. And we're starting to see that more in B2B, because people are going to start to ask questions. Who are the best? What's the pricing? What are the features? What do I get? What are the case studies? And I think if you apply that thinking to your YouTube content in B2B or in tech, you'll start to understand, oh, well, I should probably make a piece of content that's a tutorial and a feature comparison, because the LLMs are going to start to cite that. I mentioned this in our first conversation. We now have a brand new tool that will actually tell you what are people searching for in your category across ChatGPT and Perplexity and Google Gemini. And it now has a recommendation feature where it says, oh, you should create a video on this topic, because it seems to be getting cited quite often. And so I think if people are interested in figuring out, how do I do this? That's a great place to start.
And it's fun too, right? It's fun to dig into those results and think about it, because I'm not saying it's a ready-made content strategy, right? But it sure is a great place to find ideas and really see like what kind of opportunities are there for you as well.
That's what it is. One, the opportunities if you're just getting started. And then if you're pretty mature, it's helpful to find gaps.
Right.
Like, oh, I don't have a video or an article on this topic. And so for YouTube, I think it's important to know that it is a platform that is being cited by the LLMs. And as long as you follow kind of that traditional search and education-based content strategy, you will see the outcomes you're looking for. It just takes time, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah. So what are some other ways to really think about what kind literally what kind of content you should be making, right? That people are going to be searching for on YouTube. Yep. I always start with research. I think, why would you ever start to answer a question without it? But thinking on the inside, how would you suss those ideas out, right? To sort of shake out what your priorities should be? Because again, if you've got a limited budget, you're not going to make everything.
At the end of the day, if your goal is to get more visibility for your product or service, you're probably going to create a channel that's focused on that. It's still educational and tutorial based, but the people who would be finding those videos are in a buyer's mindset. They're evaluating different tools. They're trying to figure out if you're the best fit for them. And I'd say that's probably your foundation layer. And you're committing to putting content out there about your product itself so people can do that evaluation. Because you also have to remember, and we do this as consumers, I'm sure, is I want to gather as much information as I can before I ever talk to anybody in sales. I don't want to be sold to. I want to make my own opinion and gather information from a bunch of different sources. If you put content on YouTube that's educational and helpful and shows people how your product works and operates, they can start to make those decisions themselves. And if the product's fantastic, they're probably going to call you. So I would say that's probably stage one of the product tutorials. The next stage is, do I want to create some demand in market and do I want to capture what's out there? And I think that's the educational layer. And that's when people are just considering and trying to educate themselves in your industry and learn. So for us, we have the HubSpot marketing channel. Mm-hmm. And that's just education on marketing and advertising for people who are in digital marketing for the most part. But we don't sell the product. It's just we are creating content to help you do your job better. And we hope that when you're ready to consider a product, HubSpot is top of mind.
Right, because you've built goodwill in
it's that. Building up goodwill. Yes, you're building up goodwill. And we're, when you're in B2B and you're doing committee selling and there's long sales cycles, you want to be included on the consideration list. If nobody knows who you are, you can't be considered, right? And so I think it's really important to just keep adding value. And the more value you add to the community, the more value you're going to get back as a business. And I think that's just a good business strategy. And the third piece you asked of the goals, if there's a goal of generating awareness and being a thought leader and trying to get more visibility, I think storytelling and podcast formats do extremely well for that piece. But it is important to map, okay, what am I trying to do first? And I always like to start at the bottom of the traditional funnel and work my way up. Because I want to prove, the revenue impact so I can get more investment to keep going.
Right. You want to be able to show some success as soon as possible. Absolutely. Exactly. I think too, one thought I had when you were talking about, the questions to answer and kind of getting those buyers to be really confident when they finally do reach out to sales.
Sure.
Maybe hitting up sales even for the unanswered questions that they're finding coming to them. That could be an indicator of some kind of gap that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
When we do research, it's not just keyword research. We're looking at sales calls. We're talking to customers. There are a lot of things that inform the content strategy.
Okay. Next question is about actually getting those people on camera. So, you've got these experts. They're super smart. As soon as they see that blinking red light, they don't feel as good about how smart they are. So what works best for getting those camera resistant technical experts to participate with some confidence?
I do think it's important for people to know, you don't need, the charismatic, loud host to be successful on these platforms. You just want someone who's educational and has lived experience and can share stories and can share mental models and can share results. And I think a way to ease into it a lot of times is into an interview format. People tend to feel more comfortable in a panel format or a fireside chat format at events because it's unscripted and they don't have to prepare as much and they're worried about saying the one line. So if you're designing a format, podcast interviews, perform really well because you can have a host who just makes people feel comfortable and ask them targeted questions to pull answers out that are helpful. I think that's a great place to start. But it really, I will say you need people who are willing to do it and commit to doing it. That's what makes it great. But at the end of the day, it's they don't need to be over the top. They just need to be informed, and people will respect that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that technical expertise is easy to smell, right?
Yes.
When you're watching, and it garners almost immediate respect.
It does. It does.
So, okay, we already talked, I think, a little bit about the scrappy team that doesn't have the resources you folks at HubSpot have. What I want to talk now about a little bit, though, is repurposing that video content, right? In a scrappy way, right? So we're making that video, we're making it the pillar. What should we make out of it? And what are the ways we can do that efficiently, cost effectively, to really get the most, like, squeeze all the juice out of that video that we're making?
Yeah. One of my favorite examples, I have a buddy of mine. We worked together early in our careers, and he runs a YouTube and LinkedIn content program for a small agency in Buffalo, New York, in Western New York. And he's in the staffing and recruiting industry. So very focused on like helping staffing firm owners build up their business. And that's a two-sided business with businesses who need them to hire and candidates who are looking for jobs. And he has himself and a contractor. Wow. And the way that he does this is a lot of cities nowadays actually are building out like studios that you can rent, which is pretty cool. So you could do it at home with a mic that you get from Best Buy, or you could rent a studio for an hour, and it'll just like up level the look and feel. So he rents the studio and he says, okay, today I'm going to record 4 episodes in the whole day. And he's going to book guests that he's going to have on an interview. And he interviews them back to back. I think he's using Riverside, but there's a lot of affordable tools out there like Riverside or Descript. And you're able to record in 4K remotely and get a really high quality video asset. Then you ask the piece of like remixing and getting the most value out of it. He works with a contract editor who helps with clips and cut downs, but you can automate a lot of this. Opus Clip automates a lot of it. Riverside and Descript are getting better. They both have tools for this where you drop in the full length MP4 and it actually pulls out 6 clips that you should consider to post to social. And it's trained on their algorithm around like what does well on social. And the last piece, which we talked about in our first conversation around the transcript. The transcript immediately goes into Google Drive, and our team uses it as foundational material for an upcoming newsletter or blog post. And AI is really helpful in like taking a transcript and pulling things out. Like, is there a hook? Is there a statement? Is there a quote? Is there a stat? Is there an example? Something that would be really helpful for me to include in my blog post or my social post. This conversation that we're having now, I may ask you for the transcript. I'll throw it into Claude. I have a custom Claude skill that I'm going to use and write a LinkedIn post. And it's going to have all the context of our conversation. You can do that in HubSpot. You can do that in Claude. There's a lot of tools out there where you can simplify your production process and get some help. Get some help. But of course, you're not just going to copy and paste that. No. Yeah. It's all trained on what performs best for my brand. I think we talk about that in our express stage of our loop marketing framework. Like, you have to define your voice. You have to define your word selection, the words you don't use, how you frame things, and everything needs to be like marketer assisted at this point. It's just very helpful to have AI help you sift through that. Yes. The work that used to take you hours, you can at least get a V1 draft in a couple minutes. So let's talk a little bit about measurement. We talked a little bit about measurement in our first conversation. B2B marketers can get themselves burned if they expect YouTube to behave like a paid channel, right? Direct attribution, quick results, that whole thing. The team, that's going to be, checking in on studio and checking their metrics and their analytics as often as too often probably. What should they really be paying attention to? And really, what is their realistic horizon for seeing development there? Yeah, we talked about it a little in our first conversation, but I think it's important to just like double down on is like there's signals to the YouTube algorithm that your content is resonating with viewers. I think that's really important. And so when you're in YouTube Studio, you're going to look at click-through rate on a certain video. You're going to look at average view duration. You're going to look at engagement on that video, or people commenting and liking. You're going to look and try to make sure that essentially people are sticking around and people are engaging with the content. That's going to tell you that the content is good, right? And if the content's good, the algorithm is going to show it to more people. And so that's really important, is the people who are in YouTube Studio and working on the videos, they're not necessarily looking at, oh my goodness, like look at my views and subscribers over the last 3 months. The marketing strategist is looking at that for sure. Right. But the person who is like, how do I make a great video? They're looking at average view duration. So one of the things that our producers and marketers look at is that view trend around, is your video generating on average more views in the first 24 hours or first 7 days than your other videos or your channels? That's a signal to the algorithm that, hey, this is a quality video. You need to show it to more viewers. People are coming back for it. So I think when you're in the back end of YouTube Studio, you're actually looking at more of the quality metrics. And then, every month, every quarter, you're looking at those performance metrics of, how many views did I generate? How many subscribers did I generate? How many leads did I generate? But the quality signals are actually the ones we care about day to day.
For the people making that
Exactly.
content. Yeah.
Exactly.
We're getting to the end here, and this is where we hit the to-do list, right? So I'm a practitioner. I am listening, and I'm going to go back to the team, and we're going to get into our YouTube studio. We're going to organize what we have there properly, because it's a disgusting mess right now. And then we are going to be really more intentional about what we're going to do from here on out. So what are the first 3 things that they need to do?
First, audit your channel. Look at views and average view duration and new subscribers on your videos and see if anything in the past has done well. See what works, see what doesn't. The second thing is, okay, now we need to commit to an actual plan. So what's our objective? What are we going to try to accomplish for the business? Are we going to capture demand that's currently on YouTube, or are we going to try to generate awareness and impressions and kind of be a thought leader in our category? So I think you got to decide, is it a demand channel or a brand channel?
Sure. Who are you going to be on YouTube?
Once you do that, then you're like, okay, now I need to decide, what are my formats? And like, what series do I want to offer my audience? I mentioned the kind of like TV series model in the past. YouTube wants to see consistency. It rewards consistency in talent, consistency in format, consistency in release schedule. So what is the one series I'm going to develop for my viewers? And so when I say series, you have a title, you have a log line, you have a description. Is it going to be an educational how-to? Is it going to be a screen sharing tutorial? Is it going to be a podcast format? But decide on your format and then spend the next month trying to perfect the format. Formats are hard. Like the hook, the intro, the second segment, the closing, how do we do the edits, etc. It's all hard, but commit to the series and the format and then try to figure out, how do I make that format work? And then once you do that, then I think it's like, okay, I need to put a video on this channel at minimum every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, I should release a new video, and it will target my customer. It will target a topic that they care about and they search for frequently. And I'm going to offer value, and I'm not going to sell them. And then do that for 3 months and see how it goes. But I think it's like audit, kind of reorient yourself around a single strategy, a single series, and then build and give it time to mature a little bit.
Yeah. Kyle, this has been awesome. I could sit here all day and just listen to you, but this has been such a super, super valuable conversation. I think there's so much that we can apply here for ourselves, for our clients, whether they have a 10-person team or they've got, 2 people running everything in marketing and sales. And I think what stands out the most is that it's not really just about budget when it comes to doing video and putting things on YouTube. It's about that intention, like you said, consistency and discipline, and really treating the channel as its own strategic asset. So this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us across these episodes. And if you would just tell our listeners where they can find all your work, because you've got a lot of it out there.
There's a lot of it out there. I try to keep everything on LinkedIn. If you find me on LinkedIn, I'll be sharing different conversations, different presentations, anything from HubSpot that could be helpful for folks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Changeover podcast. Remember to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Wider.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let us know what you'd like to hear about next time by messaging Wider Group on social media. Thanks for watching.